You know what always cheers me up? Rolled up aces over kings. Check raising stupid tourists and taking huge pots off of them. Playing all-night high-limit hold'em at the Taj. Stacks and towers of checks I can't even see over. And Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
It's time to take an inside look at those that are taking their lives, their businesses, and their passions to the next level. Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today, we have a leadership speaker, consultant, trainer, and coach who helps high-achieving people become high-achieving leaders. He has worked with over 2,000 groups of leaders in over 25 countries. He is the author of Cracking the Leadership Code, 3 Secrets to Building Strong Leaders. Thrive Loud listeners, this is like a guy that is already in my elk and is thinking way too fast, even for me right now, as some of our conversation went, because he is ready to rock it. Thrive Loud listeners, I'm going to do my best doing my French imitation of his name because my English accent just sucks, but I'm going to go with Alain Hunkins. Welcome to Thrive Loud.
Thanks, Lou. It's Alain, but
Alain.
Or like I say, it's pretentious for Alan. There we go. So.
I'm just going to go with Mr. Hunkins. How about
that? Yes, Mr. Diamond. Yes. We're going to get very formal very quickly, Mr. Diamond.
Alain.
Yes.
My question to you to kick things off here, as someone who's been working with leaders, is when did you crack the leadership code?
Boom. I cracked it just last night. No. So here's the thing, I've been working with leaders for 20 some odd years, 25 years. And to me, you learn things. Success leaves clues. And guess what? So does failure. And so working with thousands of groups over the years, I kept seeing these patterns show up over and over again. And what I started doing was I started taking notes. And the notes turned into blog posts, and the blog posts turned into chapters, and the chapters turned into this book because I saw these 3 overarching themes, Lou, time and time again, that the great leaders did these things well in common, and the lousy leaders did these things poorly in common. And these 3 things, these 3 overarching skills were connection, communication, and collaboration, which I see as the 3 secrets to building strong leaders.
So here's why we connect, sir. And that is obviously, as you know, I'm all about connections and connecting and mastering the art of connecting. Tell me how leaders who do this well integrate those 3, because they're very integrated, those 3 terms you just ran through.
Totally. And you notice connection comes first,
yeah,
right? Because at its core, and I don't care what industry you're in, if you're a marketing manager for a Fortune 500 company or you're a solopreneur, at its core, you are in the people business. And what we have to realize is that leadership, and I define leadership not as a job title, but anytime you are trying to get anyone in any way to get anything done, whether that's just yourself and or anyone else, that takes leadership. And so what that means is you have to be in the people business. And that starts by a human-to-human relationship. So understanding human psychology and human behavior is part of the territory. So it starts with connection. And once we build that bond of connection, then what we're trying to do is get something done. We've got to have communication. And the goal of communication is to get to a place of common understanding. And the reason that is so important is because that understanding becomes the platform on which all future actions get taken. So if we have clear, good understanding between each other, we're going to make some good decisions. We're going to get some great results. If we have lousy understanding, we're going to go off the rails. And so once we have that understanding, then we can move into how are we going to collaborate so that we can do our best work to achieve whatever great outcome we want to achieve.
Alain, if any of these terms fell apart, if there was one aspect of these that didn't come through, you had good connection, maybe your collaboration was okay, but communication wasn't working, can you still deliver on great leadership, or is it all three that have to happen together?
I think, when you define great leadership, I think you can produce some great outcomes sometimes without one of the elements. But if you're in this for the long game, in terms of sustainable, about being able to work well with people long term, you're going to need all three. I mean, and they all build on each other. It's just, let's face it. I mean, if you look go back in your own memory file of all the leaders you ever worked with, and this could be at school, on a sports team or a club, or in a job, and you think about the best leaders that you've worked with, I have no doubt that they were good at being able to connect and communicate and collaborate effectively.
It's interesting because I like how you've drilled it down, almost like double clicked on it, because I believe that great leaders are master connectors, and that's internally and externally within an organization. And I kind of think that the other two have to happen or go along side by side with it. I think it's really interesting though, because you're right. If you probably can get away with, happy accidents, if you're not strong in all three, but to really thrive, you have to be in all three of those. I want to now spin it back to you. You've worked with these great companies. Can you share a story where you've seen it not work well and you had to then help coach them back into those three buckets on how they can focus on it?
Yeah. So I worked with a Fortune 100 energy company, and I was at their annual conference where they had invited their top 2,000 high potential leaders from all around the world to come to their annual conference. And the CEO was kicking things off. Now, I'm sure you've been to an annual conference, and this is a pretty typical CEO kickoff. Like, what happens? It's a general welcome everyone, give them a State of the Union, right? It's a snapshot of where we were last year, where we're going next year, and what we're going to cover at the conference. A pretty standard fare, right? That's what needed to happen here. So this CEO gets on the stage after they've done they literally had a pep band in there to kind of hype up the audience. Literally like a marching
drums.
band.
I like it.
It was total pep marching band. Okay, the lights are going, everyone's standing ovation. He hits the stage, lights come up. He goes to his slide deck and immediately just goes into, all right, we're going to run through last year's financials. And before you know it, literally a minute in, and we're looking at 8-point font on a 75-line Excel spreadsheet down this PowerPoint. And he's running through this, this is that. And then he gets to this last column. He's like, and this is EBITDA. And that means, and he stops himself and he says, wait a minute, if you don't know what EBITDA is, you shouldn't even be here. I mean, he is just digging himself into completely emotionally unaware in terms of emotional intelligence.
Were any board members present during this?
Well, this is the thing. And the thing is, this CEO, and this is funny because the company was marginally successful, right? And so they're saying, but look, he's successful. And this is where I think, going back to your earlier question around, can you manage without these things? I think some people are not successful because of it. They're successful in spite. This guy was successful in spite of missing this stuff. I mean, who knows where he was in the pecking order, how he got chosen, promoted, who knows? But what I can tell you is in that moment, you had 2,000 people in that room, and it was like a balloon had popped and all the air had gone out. And it was so clear that, and everyone rolled their eyes and they're like, oh, same old corporate crap stuff, So that's just an example of one time. And then and because, look, I'm an external consultant, I don't care if they fire me, frankly. So I'll just tell people what I see and what I saw. I mean, I won't say he's a horrible CEO. What I'll say is, when you did this, and I'll be very behavioral in my feedback, when you did this, the impact was this, right? Good coaching feedback. But no one wanted to talk to him about it.
Of course, Alain was the next speaker afterwards, and that was the stage that he left you with. I know that was the problem. That you
knew exactly. Nowhere to go but up.
I always try and understand an organization's culture by it, when I can, where it's available, to speak to the leader of the company and get a feeling for that. Let's take the other end of the spectrum here. Has there been a situation where you came in to an organization where the CEO just nailed it and understood these three core elements and knew that this was a place that you would obviously not only be successful because the three C's, if you would, were already prevalent?
Yeah, Yeah, totally. So a couple of things around that, and I always find this is I have my own little shortcuts that I have found over the years as I talk to different leaders, and one is what we'll call the pronoun test. So when they are talking about the organization, am I hearing a lot of "I do this" and "I do that," or do I hear a lot of "we do this" and "we do that"? Right. So that's a little fun thing to be aware of. Is like, how are people referring? Because how we speak says a lot about how we think and what we believe. Yeah, so I was working with a company. This is in the hospitality industry. And this CEO, this is a retail hospitality, and they have 100 district managers. And I found out early on. So she brings in, so they've got regional vice presidents, and then all the 100 district managers report in to the vice presidents, into the CEO. This CEO takes time every year to do a district manager review with every single one. Every single one of these 100 different DMs goes through with their RVP. They go in and they meet with the CEO. And the way they describe it to me is that she is both incredibly supportive and incredibly challenging all at the same time. And each one, and they walk through their entire territory. They talk about what they've done, all their work, and she basically coaches them. And every single one of those takes 4 hours. Okay.
Wow.
So just do the math. That's an investment of 400 hours of time. Right. And so I remember talking with the CEO about this later on. It's like, wow, this is amazingly impressive. And by the way, most of those people in those roles have been homegrown, right? They started off as frontline workers and they have grown up through the ranks. So I asked her, I said, that's an amazing investment. And she said, and I'll never forget this. She said, I had a mentor that told me, if you want to know what somebody values, look at their checkbook register, because that tells you where they spend their time, so spend their money. But if you want to know what a leader values, look at their calendar, because that's what tells you what they spend their time. Said, my people, a lot of people say our people are our most important asset. To me, that shows up with how I spend my time.
In a previous life in consulting, I got the opportunity to meet Costco's CEO, James Senegal, and he would visit every single location every year to inspect them personally and have that meeting with the manager of every Costco location, even like walking through the aisles and moving stuff and, around the store. But that level of commitment and dedication and consistency was always impressive.
And the magic word that you didn't mention there, of course, goes back to connection, right?
Yep.
It's making the time, because you can't fake that stuff. You can send emails and you can have glossy corporate reports, but if you can make that connection, it reminds me of that famous quote from Maya Angelou, right? She says that people won't remember what you said, they won't remember what you did, but they'll remember how you made them feel.
Yep, very true. I want to pull the curtain back a little bit here and get to know you a little bit. And I love asking this question, but I'm going to precede it with a more interesting one. You've been drinking your own Kool-Aid as it relates to your own business. Have you been making sure, at least within your world and your organization and the work that you do, that you are cracking the leadership code?
Yeah, I'm working at this stuff all the time. And really cool thing, so most of my work before COVID was face-to-face. So massive amounts of pivoting, like bringing everything to online. I mean, one of the big things I'm doing now is these online micro-learning experiences and being involved with people. And yeah, I have an opportunity to reflect all the time. And there are aspects of this that I continually need to get better at, and it's also because part of connecting, I think, for one thing for me is, look, how you can't do it all yourself. So who do you delegate to? Who do you ask for help? Who do you find as mentors? I think anyone who's an entrepreneur needs to do that. I mean, I run a small business with my consulting firm. So how am I reaching out? Because otherwise I'm spending way too much time working in the business and not enough time working on the business. Right.
Mm-hmm. So let's ask the signature question here on the program, Alain. I'm trying so hard with the name. I know I'm going to say it 5 different times differently. I'm just going to call him A-H. A-H, we're going with that for the rest of the show. No, I'm kidding. When we all are kicking on all cylinders, and kudos to you for being able to adjust and pivot your business where you needed to. A lot of us had to go through that recently, but it's also turned out to be a great lesson in showing the value that we deliver each and every day. And which means that on most days, like when you're cracking the code, you are thriving. But we all have days when we're not quite kicking on all cylinders. AH, when you have trouble thriving, who or what practice do you seek to get yourself back on the thriving track?
That's a great question. So for me, some of it has to do, I have a lot of rituals. And I mean, I've been doing this kind of work for 25 years, a lot of personal development rituals that help. So first thing is look, we live in a body. So I get in my body. And what I mean by that is whether that's exercise, yoga, meditation, I do them all at various points, is I know that if I'm in a funk, that's my Prozac. That's or whatever it is, right? So I know I need that, right? And then the other thing is also if I'm really stuck with something like taking a walk and also journaling that and phone a friend, right? I've got a court of support because I don't think any of us can succeed in any of this stuff alone. So I have multiple mentors. I'm a big fan of the lowercase m mentor. I think too many people think, oh, I have a mentor who's going to be this all-seeing, all-knowing Yoda thing. It's like, no, I don't think so. So how do you find, so I have multiple mentors. And so depending on what's going on, I reach out and I ask for help. And I'll say to them when I'm getting on the phone with them, like, look, the part of me that I don't want to share with you right now is this. And then I share it, right? So it's like, because look, we all have egos. I certainly do. There's things that I wish went better than they do, and they don't. I was just talking to someone today. I needed some advice. I said, look, I really don't want to share this with you because I want you to think I'm this awesome, wonderful, got my crap together guy, but I need some help on this. And you know what? It's always well received. So for me, it starts with, so I guess there's some physical practices, and then there's some mental practices, and then there's some emotional practices, which tie me back to my sense of purpose, which is kind of, you could say, a spiritual practice. So
I got to tell this, LA. Hold on one second. This is the classic. We have done close to 600 episodes on Thrive Loud. I've asked that question almost as many times. And you covered the rainbow. You literally hit, like, if we were to go back over all these guests and say, do they do meditation? Do they do something physical? Do they do something where they connect to others? You got it all. You're the perfect package of all that, which makes sense because you're connecting, collaborating, and communicating. So it makes perfect sense. I feel so good.
And here's the thing. Look, if you're going to call yourself a leadership expert, you've got to live this stuff, because otherwise people smell it out. And to me, I'm 52 now. I couldn't do this when I was 25 and tell everyone to do. I mean, I've got to have some lived experience in this. So that's why I've spent 25 years working on these practices, because if I'm not working on them, how can I turn around and help teach them to anybody else?
So true. We had John C. Maxwell on the program, one of the greatest leadership writers, and he's written close to 33 leadership books, and he writes one every year. And I made the comment to him, you've written so many of them. Why do you continue to need to do it? And he goes, because it constantly change and it's always fresh. And maybe what I said back then is not relevant to now. I have to adapt like everybody else. Thought it was a good applicable thing here to go through it. So you're trying all the different pieces. I love it.
Yeah. John Maxwell's a great guy.
Oh, he's amazing.
Great stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do the admin part of the show here. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, websites, URLs, social media links. We will put it all in the show notes, where we can get the book. However, the engagement is amplified when they hear it directly from you.
Awesome. Yeah. So easiest place to go. It's easier than spelling my name. So we'll start with that, which is the book website, which is www.crackingtheleadershipcode.com, spelled just the way it sounds. That'll take you right to the book webpage. And while you're there, you can download the first chapter and get a trial preview of the book, get a sense of the feel of it. While you're there, that'll take you right to my website, which is Alain, Alain Hunkins, Alain Hunkins, HUNKINS.com. And you can reach me there, and you can learn about the other offerings, such as my online 30-day leadership challenges. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. And now that you've listened this far into the episode, you are now part of the End of the Podcast Club, which means you can email me directly and I'll respond to you, which is Alain, ALAIN, at AlainHunkins.com. And also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I have about 115,000 followers, and I do check in with people. So there you go. All the places you can reach me.
Permission, Alain, to go down Fun Street with you.
I love Fun Street. Last time I checked, it is a two-way street. Is that right?
It is. You're on this show, so everything I do is fine. So definition, it goes down. We actually are thinking of making it a multi-lane highway, but at this particular point, we're focused just in one lane, and that is on you.
Awesome.
Share with the listeners, if you could, your all-time favorite movie.
All-time favorite movie is Star Wars, now known as Episode 4, A New Hope, the original. So,
why does that movie connect so much with you?
Well, it's the archetypal hero's journey. And I saw that movie when it came out. I was 8 years old. So I was in that perfect, like the right time for the right archetype, for the right growth. And so for me, like, aren't we all on our own hero's journey? And the fact that those movies keep coming, and I just keep coming back to that. It's just that sense of it is the archetypal hero's journey for me. And I think that we are all in this life to discover our own hero's journey and be the heroes in our own lives.
I love it. We're going to do the speed round here, Alain. It is without a doubt the most interesting conversations we're going to have here because you're a very well-rounded individual. What I want you to do is I'm going to ask you a question, and the first thing that comes to your mind, things that make you feel good, that lift you up, that basically make you thrive is what I'm looking for in the answers.
Awesome.
Okay. Ready to roll?
I am ready to rock.
A song that you love to hear or that pumps you up.
Firework, Katy Perry. I don't know why. There you go.
A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Sushi.
Favorite dessert.
Pretty much any flavor of ice cream except like really dark chocolate stuff.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Meditation.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Doom scrolling.
Oh, I like that term. If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere in the world, where are you?
Boom. I want to go back to Majorca and hike on the mountains there again.
Alain, I've tried. I nailed it the last time, maybe. Hunkins, thank you so much for coming on Thrive Loud today, sharing your message. I got to tell you, all about the connection, all about the collaboration, and communicating with you has been spectacular. So cracking the leadership code. Thank you for coming on Thrive Loud today. This is it. We're going to put all the links everywhere. We'll make sure we promote it in social media and wherever you are, but loved having you on the program.
Lou, I've loved being here with you. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it, my friend. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.